Welcome to Diving Deep with Dr. Danny. Listen, the hour is here, the atmosphere is set, the time is right. It's an opportunity to open up your minds, use your critical thinking. Let's look at the critical things that are facing our communities right now, both contemporary and historical. Nothing is off limits. Let's get ready. Diving deep. Let's go. Let's go. Three, two, one. Hey, what's happening? What's happening? Listen, it's your boy, man, Dr. Danny, just hanging out with you, man, and just excited about what's happening. Listen. I know people are coming online, man. We gonna sit and talk this evening, and just talk about some things, man. There's so many things that are happening, just all around the country, man. They're talking about the government might shut down. Don't know that to be true or not, but we do know that there's going to be something happening, some change, something taking place, and you can rest assured that if anything happens in the government, that we're going to feel the effects of it. It's just the way that way things are. You know, the instability is always challenging to the market, and so we're glad you're joining us, man. And I mean, all kind of stuff is out there, man. So you gotta stay woke, man. You gotta stay alert to what's happening. You know, there's a move down in Florida to get DeSantis out and Matt Gates in. It's all kind of things. People are doing what they believe is in their perceived best interest. Right. Good evening. Good evening. People are doing what they feel like they need to do in order to get what they want. You know, that old saying that says, "My four and no more." You got to watch that out there. You got to watch that out there. So tonight, eventually we want to talk about, maybe five habits out there that are causing us to be challenged financially. Things that we're doing or not doing that are going to challenge us financially. And so I came up with those things. I wrote them down, put them in my notes throughout the day, and I've been thinking about it, been looking at them. And he said, "Well, come on, Doctor Danny, tell us, really what the deal is. You out there every day. I'm out there every day with real estate and dealing with banks and credit unions and loan institutions, and then watching houses and the price of houses and understanding that's a market that is designed to keep us out, especially people of color. But we got to do our part. We got to do our part. I've had some conversations with people that just don't get it. They just don't get it. And as my broken charge said, they're never gonna get it. There's an element of people that are so challenged and so emotionally driven that they're not gonna get it. They're gonna have difficulties because uh, they have tunnel vision. They're one dimensional in their approach in life, and they're led by their feelings. And if they find themselves offended, then they forget about the finances. But you gotta understand how this game is really played. I mean, you gotta know, you gotta understand that you in America. I heard Clay Kane say today that other countries understand nationalism. If you are for instance, if you're Jamaican, you can be upset with a Haitian, but ultimately nationalism override. If you're Asian and you're Korean and you don't get along with another Asian, but nationally you look out for what's in the best interest. But the conflict that we have is that sometimes in this country you're black and you're American, but you're opposed to the American way, and because of that, you find yourself in conflict with a system that's designed to run over you, a system designed to move forward without you, and you refuse to learn the system. The one thing that you need to remember, if you look back at history, It doesn't matter who led us, right? We do talk about King, we talk about Garvey, we talk about Malcolm X, but we can go through the list of them. One thing they all had in common is that they learned and understood the American system, right? They knew the problems with it, but they understood the system. They were not ignorant of the system. They knew what it took in order to navigate through the system. And if you think about King, he wanted to give us rights within the system, right? Rights within the system to be able to do that. So anybody that's teaching their children not to learn the system is not going to do well in this country and probably not well anywhere else because the system is going to stay in place. Good evening. The system is going to stay in place, and so you have to learn the system. You have to go and learn it. There's no accident that they don't teach finances in public schools. They don't teach home ownership in public schools, right? They don't teach a balance and checkbook. Anything that has to do with you learning how the system really works, right? You better find another source to be taught, right? And someone has said earlier, and something I was listening to or reading, is that that's where the black church has got to come into play. We cannot keep preaching to people every Sunday, watching them die in the same financial condition that they've always been in. Okay, so let me give this to you, and then I'm gonna get right into the meat of what I'm gonna talk about. In order to be in the top 1% in the United States, believe it or not, you have to make $600,000 a year. If you make $600,000 a year, you in the top 1%. Now I know you didn't know that because you think of the top 1%. You're thinking about the multi-millionaires and the multi-billionaires, but they are a very small number. They got a large amount of money, but the top 1% makes about 600,000 a year. I got some friends that are in that category. So $600,000 a year they're making that. To be in the top 5% in the country, right? Then you need to make $250,000 a year in the top 5%. You need to make income of 250,000 a year. And that's going to become important in a moment because some of us are, we've been in that top 5%, right? But then here's the challenge, though. The challenge is the bottom 80%. That's where the challenge is, the bottom 80%. Um, and the lack of systems and the lack of strategy in that bottom 80%, right? They're constantly, fighting for recognition, and you don't understand how the system works. You have to have money. In America, you have to have money, and you have to have a regular source of income, right? And you need to think about that, and that needs to be taught. That needs to be thought about. And so I'm gonna give you five what I think are five challenges or five reasons why people don't move from those classes or those categories that I mentioned to you, right? Because again, you got to do that. You got to do that. You got to figure out a way to be able to do that to make sense. Because if not, then even if you pursue home ownership, then what you're going to qualify for, right, is going to put you in a whole nother category where there's not going to be that many to choose from, right? If you qualify for less than $300,000 in today's economy, then the availability of houses it's not a lot of them. It's not a lot of houses. Period. The supply is down for sure. But when you really, really, really have not qualified for beyond that 300,000, then it's very difficult to negotiate and get in a safe area and stand a chance of having something that's going to appreciate for you over time. And I know a lot of people listen to me and saying, "Well, I don't have to worry about that because I already have a house." But let me tell you something: as the prices of houses go up, right? If your value of your house is not appreciating at a certain level, then to get work done around your house is disproportionately going to cost you a lot of money. right? It's going to cost you a lot of money. So you need to make sure that even if you in a house that you were satisfied with, it was $350,000. You may want to consider moving up to the next level, the next echelon, because what's happening is that there's a group of people now that are going to pay the same amount, right, and be able to move. Watch this now, to where you are, and you got to make sure that that's what you want, right? That you want to make sure that that's the area and the atmosphere that fits for you. So let's dive right into this. I wrote me some notes. Let's dive right into this. Say hello when you jump in on Facebook. Say hello so I can see you there. I see several of you there. I see you. I see you, Mom. I see you, Julia. I see other people on live. Just say hello. Say good evening. Just jump in there so we can break the algorithm and get you in there. Just jump on in there. So let's talk about the 5 habits that are keeping you poor. There you go. I see you, Donna. Thank you so much, and thank you so much for your support. You know what I'm talking about. Thank you so much for that. So what is keeping us challenged financially? What is keeping us poor? Can I show you something tonight? The first thing I want you to know that's challenging us is not knowing your numbers. You got to know your numbers. In the medical field, our providers did a campaign some years ago. It wasn't that many years ago, but they did a campaign called Know Your Numbers. And what they were talking about then when they were saying know your numbers, they were talking about know your blood pressure because they were comparing it to 120 over 80. They were talking about knowing your glucose level or what we call a sugar level, right? Which is really back then was supposed to be below 7, 6.5 or below, whatever it is now. I don't know what it is. Maybe SD Whitaker jump in there a minute and say what those numbers are. But know your cholesterol numbers. Know the good cholesterol, the bad cholesterol, and then obviously know your body fat index. They had this campaign about know your numbers. And so as a guy that's in the business world, I want to submit to you tonight that you need to know your numbers. You need to know your numbers. Now you said, well, what are you talking about? The first number that you need to know if you're going to have financial freedom is you got to know your income. You got to know the numbers. You really got to know your income. Now you'd be surprised the number of people who really don't know their income. They don't know their income. There are people that work on more than one job, right? They work on more than one job, but they really don't know their income. They don't know their gross income as opposed to their net income. They don't know, they know initially they may be able to tell you what they make an hour, but they don't really know after their retirement is taken out, after the 401k is taken out, after the insurance is taken out, after taxes are taken out. They don't really know their number. They don't know their real income, right? And so you cannot get beyond where you are categorically if you don't know your numbers. So you got to know your income, right? First of all, that's the number you got to know. The second number that you got to know is you got to know your expenses. So I'm going somewhere with this. You got to know your expenses, right? So if you know your income, right, you got to know your expenses. And there are people who really don't know what their monthly expenses are as compared to their monthly income because they've never sat down and really did a budget. They never sat down and really looked at the numbers. All they know is that they got a car payment that's X dollars. They got a mortgage that's X dollars. They got maybe another high dollar thing that they pay for, and they know what that is. But they don't look at, the cable, the assessment amount they're paying for cable. Cable's going up. You don't even pay it any mind. Your car insurance may fluctuate. Your house insurance. So you don't really know your expenses. And then on top of it, you don't know how much you eat out, right? You don't know how much gas you spend in a month. Now you gonna try to pretend like to me that you know, right? But you don't really know your numbers. So you don't know your monthly expenses. So watch this now. So in order to get beyond where you are and to make a shift, you got to know your income, right? And you got to know your expenses because the difference between them is your income margin or your profit margin. It's how much money you have, right? Now, because if you know those numbers, then you know how to attack those numbers, right? Now, ideally, you want to attack both of them. You want to increase your income and decrease your expenses. That's hard to do. That's hard to do. But if you could do one of them, right, then you begin to see some change, right? But you got to know that. You got to know that. And I know you said, well, I got plenty of money. I don't have to worry about it. Well, if you're gonna really move, then you do need to know about it because you need to know how much money later on when I start talking about investment. You got to know what you can do and what you can't do. And so you gotta look at that income gap. You gotta really look at it and see what it is. Now, typically, I teach people that they gotta operate off the 70-30 rule. I've heard of the 80-20, the Pareto rule, but the 70-30 rule, and I'm just repeating it. I know you know it already. Good evening. As you come in, just say hello so I know that you're there. You live off 70% of your income, right? You put 10%, towards, um, what we consider to be tithing. Um, and giving back, the tithing is 10%, and then you look at another 10% that you look and put in what I call long-term investments like retirement, right? And then you want 10% that you kind of put in your short term and savings, monies that you might need that you might be able to spend, and you learn to live off the 70%, right? And you can do it. You said no, I can't do it. Yes, you can. Yes, you can, because you here's what you do. You get mad and frustrated about expenses that you have to have, but you find a way to justify the things that you want, which alter what's in your bank account. You see, so you get frustrated when you have to pay something, but you find a way to purchase what it is that you want. Let me give an example of something, right? When it comes to buying a new outfit, see, you feel like you have to have that for the next event, the next party, and whatever. See, you feel like you have to have that, so you find a way to feel good about getting that, because that's a must. Because you got to look right. You look good, you feel good. That's what Dion said, and you perform good. So you don't have a lot of qualms about that. If you're going on vacation and you need some swimming trunks or you need a bathing suit or you need sundresses, see, you feel like you have to have that, right? But then when it comes to other expenses that pile on to that or adjacent to that, then you struggle because you see the needle of your finances moving, right? So, but you gotta know the numbers, and you do that, and then you work off this 70-30. Now, I wrote a note in here, and I want you to think about this for a moment. They're talking about the government shutting down. Let me ask you a question, right? Because most people don't know the difference between assets and liability. They think they do, because the difference between assets and liability is your net worth, right? The difference between your assets and your liabilities is your net worth, right? And you got to know what it is. And your net worth is not always what we call liquidated. Uh, so it does not determine your cash flow, right? You can be worth a lot of money, but not be able to get your hand on the money, right? Because your money could be tied up in assets that you cannot liquidate. You cannot get any money. And so you have to be careful about that, because ultimately you got to have cash flow. You got to be able to get your hands on cash. So what's looming in the government, let me ask the question that you want to think along. Listen, if you were to lose your job, how many days could you survive? If you were to lose your job, how many days could you survive? I want you to think about that for a moment. Listen, I tell you, we're going to dive deep and I'm going to challenge you. If you were to lose your job, without a job, how many days could you survive? Now, there's some people that's listening to me right now. You say, "Aha, I'm already retired, so he not talking to me. I got him, because I ain't got no job and I'm doing well." But watch this though. If the government shuts down, then some governmental programs might be put on halt for a minute, right? So what if you couldn't get your Social Security? How many days could you survive? What if they attack the VA money and you can't get your VA money? It's yours, but you can't get it because they frozen it. Look at the military. They're talking about right now, and the military may not get their paycheck. I remember that occurred many years ago when I was in the military, right? It wasn't as prevalent as it is now about shutting down the government, but I do recall it happening a time or two when I was on active duty, right? And listen, I can tell you that I have employees who work for me, and they can't go a day without their check, right? They cannot. They cannot go. They cannot go a day without their check. They literally live from paycheck to paycheck. That's why when I get off this line with the night, I got to do payroll. I got to do payroll because they cannot go a day without their paycheck. Right? They have not. They don't have any money in saving. They don't have any money anywhere. Right? They're literally living from paycheck to paycheck, and that's a lot of Americans. So I'm gonna ask the question again. When we start talking about not knowing your numbers, how many days can you survive without a job? I dare somebody to put a number in the chat because you're afraid because you haven't thought about it, right? If that number is not infinity, right, then you need to be listening to what I'm telling you. If you have to have some form of employment, then you need to listen to what I'm telling you, right? You need to put yourself in a better position. So the first thing is challenge is the habit that we have that keeps us poor is not knowing your numbers. Now here's the second thing is that we don't have an emergency fund. The lack of an emergency fund, right? A lack of an emergency fund. Now, everyone should have, as Dave Ramsey said, everyone should have $1,000 that they can put their hands on right now. Right now, I'm not talking about waiting until the bank opens up in the morning, right? And hoping that you can go there and get it. No, 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 no. I'm not talking about you got it in your 401k and you can get it out. No, I'm talking about an emergency fund that if you're driving down the road and you got to go somewhere tonight, right, and you have a flat tire, that you do not have to use a credit card, right? If something in your house stops working, you don't have to use a credit card. Let me tell you what happened to me. So yesterday I was working. I was getting ready to go to my other office. I was getting ready to go down to the real estate office, and I was upstairs. And if you know my upstairs, it's a long ways from the front door. My front doorbell rang. I thought it was UPS dropping off something or whatever. So I didn't move quickly, but finally I made my way to look down the stairs, and it was my neighbor who's never been over here before. But I recognized him, and he was walking away, and as he was walking away, I kind of looked at the window from upstairs, because of my knee, I couldn't move it so fast, and he was looking at water that was coming out of my water meter, which was next to my mailbox. And so matter of fact, I left the light on upstairs. I went down, opened up my garage, and by the time I was coming down the driveway, I saw the water had ran all the way down my neighborhood from my house. And so his wife saw me, and so she third house over. She came over and she says, "Yeah, your water been running all day and partly last night." Is what she said. I was like, "Wow." So I jumped on the phone and I called the city of Rocky Mount and told them they need to send somebody out here. And of course, it took them 45, 50 minutes, maybe an hour to get here. The water's still running. And so I had to be somewhere. And I went where I went and I circled back around. They came in, left a note. In essence, the note that they said, they cut my water off to my house. They cut the water off and left a note and said, I need to call a plumber because the leak is on my side. But yet they hadn't dug down in the ground. They hadn't dug anything. So I'm like, well, how do they know the leak is on my side? But anyway, I called a guy that I knew who owned a plumbing company, but he had sold it to someone else. He gave me the number. And so I called the plumber, and so happened, he said, well, where do you live? I told him where I live. And he said, well, listen, I'm coming on, he was on the other side of town. He said, I can be there in 10 minutes. I said, cool, man, great. So he pulls up in his van, and the plumber shows up. He digs down in the ground. He's got a shovel. The guy that's with him, that works for him, whatever. They dig down. They get down to my water meter, and he says, "Surely, I think you're gonna have to it replaced." He said, "But listen now," he says, "I'm gonna give you the low end of what it's gonna cost you, and I'm gonna give the high end, right?" So finally, when he cleaned it off, he looked at me. He said, "It's gonna cost you the high end." And so he told me what the amount was, and I told him, I said, well, go ahead and fix it. I said, how do you want to get paid? Do you want a card? Do you want cash? Do you want cash app? You want a check? Tell me what you want. He said, well, I'll take any of those. I said, okay. And he was stunned. He said, well, I need to go get the part. I said, do you need to get paid right now? He said, no, you pay me when I get back. Well, why did I say that? Ellis, why you I'm telling you because I needed my water. And it was already about 3:45 or something like that, 3:30 in the afternoon. I needed my water back home. I didn't need to play around with the plumber about whether or not he was going to get paid. Right? I had to have some money. Right? Emergency fund. This was an emergency. My water was cut off. Right? My water was cut off. And obviously he's looking at the house I live in. My car was parked out on the side of the road because I was getting ready to go somewhere. And in his mind, automatically, I was going to get charged the highest end of the spectrum of what it calls to repair that. But I didn't hesitate because that needs to be fixed, right? I didn't need to fumble around with that. Whatever form he needed it, he was going to get it because I couldn't operate without any water. You need water for your bathroom. You need water to drink. For everything in your house, you need water. You'd be surprised how many things operate off of water. Even your refrigerator needs water. The dishwasher needs water, right? So you to go without water. He says if you go another way, probably 3 days before. I said no, you need to get to work right now. I'm gonna pay you right now. So you got to have money for an emergency. Now you said, well, Ellis, what are you talking about? Well, there's a couple of things that you need to be able to do in order to help you out when it comes to emergency. Like some of you need to take advantage of the health savings account, right? The health savings account. The number one reason that people file bankruptcy in this country is because of medical bills, unexpected medical bills. How many times have you heard stories about people all of a sudden having a sudden pain of some sort and have to be taken to the doctor, to the hospital, or a toothache or something along those lines? When it comes to your health, you can't be playing around. So you got to have some money, right? You got to have some money, some emergency money. So you need a health savings account, or you need money that you like a Roth IRA. A Roth IRA, the way it works, if you put 5,000, 5,000, 5,000 in a Roth IRA for 5 years, you can draw that $25,000 out of there without a penalty because you put the 25,000 in there. So it can act as a savings account if you need it for it too. That's a Roth IRA. You're able to do that. You can liquidate that pretty fast, right? And to be able to do that. So you got to be able to get your hand on some money, right? And I'm not talking about going around borrowing money because if you got to borrow money from folk and they don't give you any money, now you're mad, right? And I will assure you that when you need money, you will not be able to get it. You can't do that. You can't put people in a position where if they don't give you what's theirs, then that hinders you from being able to do what you need to do. So you need to have an emergency fund, right? Somebody hit me up so I can see you on the chat and know that you're there. You got to have an emergency fund. You got to have an emergency fund. So first of all, you got to know your numbers. You got to accumulate money for an emergency fund. A third, you got to know the difference because there's confusion about debt and leverage. Right now, I saw something a couple weeks ago. I think I'm not sure. I think D showed it to me. I don't know if it was at church or where it was, but it was a video about credit card and borrowing money off of a credit card and paying the money back on a credit card and using the credit card to pay your mortgage and all those things, using the credit card to pay your mortgage. Let me give you a warning sign. Let me give you a warning sign. Do not confuse debt as leverage. Now, I know some people that teach total debt free and never utilize debt. I don't teach that totally because I think that there's certain type of debt that can be leveraged for you. And for instance, if you buy real estate, right, then that's a good way to be in debt because it's going to generate income. It's going to make more money than what it costs you. So you need to go to the bank and when you acquire property, you need to be careful about using your own money. Most of the time, you use debt, right, in order to acquire an asset, and then the asset pays the debt back, right? The asset pays the debt and you. That's what you want to be able to do, right? But you got to be careful now. You got to be careful. Watch this now. You got to be careful. Thank you, Dr. Rouse. You got to be careful now. Watch this now. Here's where people confuse debt with leverage. Um, because the whole idea of this video was how to extend how much credit on a credit card you would have, how much you could get if you the more you use your card, the more they give you. Like for instance, typically at a financial institution, if let's say you bank at the credit union, right? As a customer of the credit union, you got a pretty good account with them. You can get a $10,000 credit card and they not have to run your credit. They just look at your account and they say, "Oh yeah, we give you $10,000, you good to go." Anything above $10,000, then they got to run your credit and to be able to do that. But I pretty much feel like 10,000 is plenty, right? If you go to Truist Bank, sometimes they give you 7,500. It just depends on where you go. Depends on what you need to do. But here's the thing that I'm trying to get you to understand about debt. Here it is. Watch your credit cards. I don't care what anybody says. Credit cards make their money based on the fact that you are going to slip, that you are going to forget, right? That you're going to overextend. They don't loan you money on a credit card or let you make purchases on credit card just to get their money back. They don't just want their money back. They want your money and their money. So they want you to miss a payment, right? They want you to have a balance, right? That's what they want. That's the whole reason for giving it to you, right? Because they want that money, right? Because they can leverage that debt. They can leverage that debt from their end, right? They do it all the time. If you notice on your house, it's not unusual for you to buy a house and the mortgage owner, your lender changes, right? You can buy a house through the credit union, or you can buy a house through Wells Fargo, and in a couple of years, they may give that to Freedom Mortgage. They may give that to Taylor Beam and Whitaker, companies that you never heard of, Bank of America. Everybody's buying these debts. That's how they make their money. They do it. It goes out on the market. That's why you have to have Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and the companies that back them up, because it's a system that they use with this whole mortgage thing. So it's a real in-depth thing. But the country can crumble based on the housing market for things that you don't understand, right? It's what they do when they play around with the mortgage. So you got to watch credit cards, right? Because here's the thing about credit cards. Credit cards are probably the highest interest debt that you have. It's nothing to have a credit card that's 22%, 20, 21, 22%. Some young people got them at 24%. That's why they give them to them in college. That's why they give them to them in college, these credit cards. You'd be surprised how many students in college are eating and partying and hanging out on a credit card. Because they figure they get a credit card, they can pay their apartment note, watch this now, or something along those lines, and then receive the cash that you're sending them to pay for their apartment, right? So if you don't pay for their apartments, I paid for Malcolm's apartment, right? I actually gave them the check, right, for his apartment. But look how easy it is for them to get a credit card, pay the apartment with the credit card, and then keep the cash that you gave them and blow it all, and just let their balance and their credit card just go up. So you got to watch those high interest debts like credit cards. I just think the credit cards are dangerous. I mean that's just the bottom line. I don't. I have a credit card in my pocket, but that credit card is for traveling, right? And I try to pay it off right now. I think I got a $300 balance on the credit card. I think I do. Um, uh, I can't exactly remember what it was. $300 and something dollars on it. But I'm gonna pay that off. I just hadn't even thought about it. But I pay the whole balance off and to be able to do that. Now, here's the thing. If you're going to understand leveraging, what you want to leverage is real estate, right? Real estate. We don't talk enough, especially in the Black community, about real estate, about property. Now, I'm going to tell you something that you're not going to like what I'm going to tell you. The rental market is never going to go away. So you might as well get you some rental property. You're going to hear me talk about that. The rental market is not going to go away. There are always going to be people who are going to rent. It just ought not be you. But there are always going to be people that's going to rent because they don't understand the American system. They do not understand it. They rather go to the next party, go to the next restaurant, and then park their car at an apartment. That's just the way they think. They don't think any other way. That's just the way it is, right? And then they don't know what to do to get qualified. It takes a long time to get ready for a home purchase, right? It takes a long time. Now, there's a lot of programs out there. I can tell you about FHA and the first time home buyer program. Those are out there, but they're for people whose income is low. These people make less than 80,000 a year, right? It's to get them in a certain type of house in a certain neighborhood, right? And then to lock them in, right, at a high interest loan, right? I mean that's just the bottom line. Now, you can talk about a conventional loan which does not require 20%. You think it do, right? It's 20% in order to avoid PMI. But really, you can get a conventional loan at 3%, as low as 3%. Most of them around 5%. It's depending on your credit score, right? And the magic number is 680. For a convention. If you got a 680 credit score, you can buy a house right now. There's no reason for you not to be in a house. Now you can buy a house with a 580, right, from using FHA. You can do that. So there's no reason for you not to investigate that and sit down with a realtor, a real estate professional to know what they're talking about and begin to work with them with the intentions of preparing what you need to prepare. Remember what I told you, any cash that you have for a down payment or any cash you have for escrow or due diligence has to come out of your bank account. It cannot be cash. So you need to meet with a realtor even 60 days before you're ready to buy if you don't have a lot of money. You need to make sure that money is in the bank so that when it's time to put in an offer, you can go to the bank and have them issue a check or a cashier's check or something along those lines. Those are kind of things that you need to be working with a real estate professional that they can do that. And I'm available to do that. I mean, I'm telling you, there's a lot of people out there that don't know about home ownership. They going by what somebody told them. But you can prepare. I can tell you right now that the credit union is one of the best ways to go. But you need to be working with a real estate professional because the credit union is not going to say for sure whether or not they're going to approve you until they know what house you're trying to buy and the value of that house and the appraisal value of that house. So there's a process that you need to be working with somebody with in order to get that very best deal. And I'm available to do that for the people that are serious. But make sure you understand the power of real estate. right? And put it in your portfolio. You want to own some property, right? You want to own some property. And I know there's some maintenance involved in it, and you don't have to maintain it yourself. You can go through either a property management company, or you can have a real estate broker, or something along those lines. But you need to be the owner of it, and to be able to do it, because there's some tax breaks. I ain't got time to tell you the tremendous amount of tax breaks that are out there for people that own property, and how real estate can be written off. You can write it off of your taxes, right? And be able to do that. So you gotta know that. So here it is: not knowing your numbers, lack of emergency fund, confusing debt as leverage. Here's the fourth thing, and you should like this. You got to know how to invest in yourself. If you're going to make a change, you need to invest in yourself. Now, let me be straight about this so you can understand this, SD Whitaker. Investing in yourself does not mean go to the mall. It does not mean go to the mall. It does not mean go up there to Leaf Mercedes or wherever it is, Capital Mercedes or Johnson Lexus. That's not investing in yourself. Invest in yourself means learn about taxes. Number one, right? There's over 1,000 tax codes out there. I mean, just buku tax code. You ain't got to know them all. What you got to know is what applies to you, right? You got to understand what it means. You got to understand the difference between a Schedule C and compare that if you make a certain amount of money, then you need to go and get you an LLC and turn it into an S corporation, and then pay yourself out of that entity, but avoid paying that 15.3% tax that's tacked on to being self-employed, so to speak. So you gotta know that. You gotta know how the taxes work. You gotta understand the tax write-offs. You gotta know. You gotta have a program in place where you can write off expenses. So you gotta invest in yourself. In other words, you gotta read. You gotta read. You gotta read. You gotta read. You gotta understand how that works. And the younger it is, the better. Younger it is, the better. At a collegiate level, they need to understand that. Long before they get way in debt, right? Then they need to understand how money in America works, right? How it really works. The problem is there's a lot of people that are at our collegiate level that are teaching, but they're consumed by debt themselves. The academician, the academic folk, they're good at research, they're good at writing, but they're real poor at money management. Real poor. You'd be surprised the number of professors that are living in apartments. Okay, you didn't hear what I said. They don't own homes, right? They don't own homes, and their reason is, well, I'm on a 2 or 3 year contract. I don't know how long I'm gonna be here. It makes no difference. If you're gonna be here 3 years, you need to own a home. You need to own a home. Okay, watch this now. So let's say you come in for 3 years, and 3 or 4 years, and you're here and you don't leave. What happens to the money that you paid for 4 years in an apartment, 3 years in an apartment, right? You have no equity. So you need to come in looking for a house, right? You need to come in looking for a house. Now, it may not be the final house that you get. And you say, well, maybe I've come in and I left my family, maybe I left my wife and kids somewhere else. Well, then I sort of kind of understand that, right? I sort of kind of understand that, but you still need to understand that you're on a 3 or 4 year contract, and you're still losing money. Now, there may be a situation that you're in that you can't not have, two mortgages at the same time. That's something to be looked at and discussed along those lines. But you need to make sure that you're investing in yourself. The other thing that you need to understand is you need to understand the 401k. You need to understand what that means. You need to understand what that does for you. You need to understand where your monies are invested in your 401k. Whether or not you are risk averse, or whether you are moderate. Whether you in the latter days. Ain't no need to be risk averse. When you get close to retirement, you need to try to make all the money you can make, right, and push that thing. The later you are in the cycle. And then you need to invest in yourself and learn about the stock market. Now, maybe you won't know everything about the stock market. I'm not talking about being a day trader and you know you got to sit there all day long and watch what the market is doing. No, but you need to understand that there's a great return on the stock market, right? There's a great return out there, man. Anywhere from 10 to 12% over a period of time, and you need to understand what that means. You need to understand what that means whenever something is traded on the market. You need to understand what that means. And then also, because you need to understand the difference between your stocks, those that are growth and those that are dividend driven. See, dividend driven is what you want because you want stocks that pay you for your money, right? You buy it and they pay you for your money. You're getting your money for your money. You don't want to be investing in a company that doesn't recognize or doesn't give you anything. They grow, but you don't get anything. So you want to make sure you're getting paid for the money that you put as stock in a company. So you gotta make sure you understand dividends versus growth. Both of them works, but you got to know exactly what you're dealing with. Also, you need to, and I wrote this down. You got to learn about real estate. You got to learn about real estate from acquiring properties to a rent and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, you got to know, single family units, multiple family units, what the rules are around that. Capital gains, maybe taking your house and turning it into a rental property, buying you another house, right? But taking the current house that you have and turning it into a rental property. Or if you're in a situation where you strap for money, look at the possibilities of renting out the rooms in your house and developing a roommate type system to help pay off what you're trying to pay off. So, but eventually, you got to know what you're doing. I mean, you got. Yeah, I'm telling you, you got to learn real estate. You just really do, right? Even in this market right here, there's money to be made. Believe thou this when I tell you that there are people making a lot of money, right, in this current economy, right? And if you're not sitting down with me, I can't explain it to you how money's been made. But people are actually selling their houses right now, even what you consider to be a high interest rate. But they made so much money, right, that they've taken their equity. They're saying, listen, I got so much equity. Let me get this money out now, right? And move on to something else. Because there's still good credit rates out there. Matter of fact, if you do it right, watch this now. If you do it right, let me explain something to you. If you've been living in your house, I'm gonna give this to you for free. You normally have to call me and sit down with me and to do this. Okay. Let's say you bought a house for 350,000. Okay. That house has now doubled, right? The house has doubled. Okay. But you haven't finished paying off the house, right? You haven't finished paying it off, but you paid off a great deal of it. It done doubled. Now, all you got to do is sell that house, take the equity out of that house, plus what you paid down on that house. Then you can afford another $400,000 house and pay cash for it. And so you don't have to even worry about the interest. You don't have to even worry about it. See? Because here's the thing. If you get a large enough down payment, right, and put it on another house, even a larger house, then what you're dealing with from an interest perspective is still very low. Your payments are still going to be lower than what you're current paying, and then you'll owe less. So it's about working the system. If you're not sitting down with a real estate professional and understanding and talking about it, then you may be missing a great opportunity. That's why people are selling their houses. In my neighborhood, people are selling their houses, right? They're selling them down the street, right? Of course, the street down from me, I told you last week, sold for 1.1 million. Right around the corner was 700 and what 790 something like that. Right up the street from me, that sold for almost 600,000. Right up the street from me. See, because they understand finances. See, we don't understand. Nobody tells you got to keep a house for 30 years. Who told you that? Well, why do you have to keep the same house for 30 years? You need to look for the right time, the right opportunity, right? Make the money and be able to pay the house off, right? Or pay way down on a new house, a much larger house, and start the cycle over, right? Start the cycle over. I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you, I bought my house at the perfect time, right? At the perfect time. My interest rate right now is just two and some change. I'm just going to tell you that. It's just 2.3. I think it is just 2.3. In a market now where people are buying houses that are 7%. Right? So I'm just telling you, I'm paying down on the principal, man, like it ain't nothing. And so I could technically right now take the equity in my house right now, sell this house and go buy the house that I was living in before I moved here and pay cash for it. I don't have to finance it. I literally can pay cash for the house that I moved out of and have absolutely no mortgage, right? See? Because you got to know the right time. So don't get the idea and not understand finances and don't want to sit down with nobody who can explain it to you and show you the numbers in writing so that you can understand and net what you're going to net by considering hey, it might be the right time. So make sure you invest in yourself. Make sure you're doing that. And we don't do that. And because we don't do that, we remain poor. Here's the fourth thing on that, invest in yourself. You need four streams of revenue. You need four streams of revenue. Because here's why. All four rivers are never going to dry up at the same time. It doesn't matter if there's a drought. I know there's a drought in New Orleans right now. I know we were down there over the summer. It was hot. I mean, it was hot. The 4th of July, it was above 100 degrees. Now it's gotten so hot in New Orleans that people are beginning to drink salt water. The salt water is getting mixed up with the fresh, a little bit of fresh water, and they have some real concerns. So they're really now they're shipping in water, right? They literally got big large boats, right? Barge that are bringing fresh water in and dumping water in the Mississippi because the Mississippi has dried up. It's drying up, especially upstream from New Orleans. So they got a water crisis. They begin to look at bottled water is needed. All those kind of things. So streams do dry up. Rivers do dry up. That's why you need four streams of revenue. Now I'm a spiritual person, and because of that, I believe that in the book of Genesis, the Bible supports four streams of revenue. If you look at the Garden of Eden, when we sing the song, getting back to Eden, right? Eden stayed rich because it had four rivers. It had four rivers flowing into it at all times, four rivers. And so that's why I developed that concept some 20-something years ago about four streams of revenue. If God decided to do that for the Garden of Eden, then you need to do that when it comes to your finances. Do not rely on one income. Your job, because if your job is the only money you got coming in, right, then your boss is in control of you, and you're not in control of you. So you need to make sure that you can maintain your integrity no matter what they tell you to do, even if it means you got to walk away, right? I'm not doing anything rash, but I'm just telling you that you got to have more than one stream of revenue, right? In doing that. Let me give you this last thing, and I'm gonna get off tonight. The final thing that you have to have is reason why we remain poor or we have financial challenges is we fail to invest in assets. Yeah, we don't invest in the right thing. We buying cars, we buying clothes, right? We don't invest in the right thing. The right thing to invest in is technology. Technology. And can I tell you, if you want to know what to invest in, read what others are investing in, right? Find out what Warren Buffett is investing in, right? Berkshire Hathaway. Look what they're investing in. Look what some of these great real estate gurus. Look what they're investing their money in, and you want to invest in it too. But you got to read. You got to understand. You got to study, right? And I told you before, you need to read that book now, Rich Dad Poor Dad. Rich Dad Poor Dad. You need to read that book. You need to read it. Rich Dad Poor Dad. It'll change your mind. It'll change everything about your life if you read that book and to understand that. So make sure you're looking at what other people are investing in. And also watch this, an asset, rental property. Because here's the key with rental property. Rental property means someone else pays for what you own. That's what it is. You want rental property. If you got some time on your hand, right? And you want to manage it yourself, great. If you don't want to manage it yourself, acquire the property, acquire the land, right? Make them purchase the land from you. The final thing I wrote down here is commercial property, right? Find some land out there to buy, right? As the economy continues to roar and come back strong, right? There's going to be some expansion that's going to take place out there. You want to own that land. You want to own that building, right? You want to own that, right? Because you want them to have to buy it from you or lease it from you. When they lease it from you, you still own it, right? They're just managing it. They're just occupying it, right? For a set amount of time, even commercial. A lot of companies do not buy the building. They lease the building, right? They lease the building. If you go right around here and look, you'll see that a lot of places have closed down. The building is still there. All they doing is looking for another tenant, right? Another tenant. So you want to be able to acquire some of that, right? Listen, I understand in Wilson that Walgreens is closing. One of those drugstores on MLK, leaving Wilson, get ready to head to Greenville, on the east side of town, is planning on closing like October the 11th, right? And so that building is going to be vacant. Now, you said, well, why are you telling me that? Because if you come in Wilson, I'm not in Wilson, but if you come on the other side of town, down War Boulevard, where War Boulevard meet Nash, you'll find there was a CVS that's there, and they closed down some years ago. And the building is still there, right? The building is still there. So those buildings are available for almost anything that you want to utilize them for, right? All you have to do is make sure you understand the zoning of the building, and find you another tenant, right? And to be able to do that. So what should you be doing, Ellis? Okay. Well, some of you, some of your groups, some of your friends, some of your golfing buddies need to talk about going in unison together to purchase a piece of property, right? Just being able to, and even if it means, listen, even if it means using debt to acquire that, to formulate a company, right? Go to the bank, right? Leverage your reputation, your name, get enough money to upfit it, whatever you need to do, and get you some tenants in it, and let the tenants pay. Watch this now. Your monthly note back to the bank, right? They pay the monthly note, but once they've paid a certain amount of time, you've got at least a certain amount of time, then the building is paid for and you own it. You own the building, right? And once you own the building, it is yours, right? It's yours. That's how you pass legacy along, right? You teach your children. You better ride around town and say, okay, we own this, this, and this. And they be like, well, why somebody else in it? They leasing it. They're paying for what we own. And when the time is right, then we're going to tell them that they got one more year to lease it, because we want to do something different with it, right? Or we want to sell it. Whatever the case may be, you want to be able to get your equity out of it and be able to do it. But real estate is the way to go. It's the way to go. So listen, I've held you long enough. Listen, man, I so appreciate you so much. Just chilling, coming, hollering at your boy, and to do whatever. I hope that something I'm telling you is doing two things. One is perking up your ears, so you're starting to think and in your mind. At the same time, I hope you understanding that as a real estate professional, as a guy with a business background, listen, if you run across somebody who is thinking about doing something, need to do something, need to sell, buy, whatever, I'm hoping that you'll think about me. You say, listen, you need to call Ellis, cause one, he's different than most real estate brokers. Here's why he's different, right? One, he has a strong business background. So he's not limited to just houses. He understands commercial. He understands companies. He understands the market. He has a very, very understand, because that's what he's done for a living for all these many years. He understands how to structure a company, an LLC. I've started so many LLCs and switched them to S corporations, all that kind of stuff. So I know how the system in America works as far as utilizing your LLC for your traveling purposes and all that kind of stuff, and be able to do that, and even employing your children as a part of that, so you don't have to give them allowance. So that's some creative ways as a professional that I can talk to you. That's why on my card it said real estate professional, and not just a broker, and not just an agent. I know how the system works, and I know how to work it with you. So I would ask that you would just, throw my name out there, get some out of my card, whatever the case may be, and tell them I know how to tell them how to deal with the bank, how to work that, how to make sure that you maximize. At what point do you switch from an FHA to a conventional loan, to get out of paying all that insurance on a FHA loan, and understanding the difference of what that looks like, because the FHA loan will give you money, but they're going to get you on the insurance side of it, right? On that insurance side, they're going to get you. So your payment's going to be a little bit high with an FHA loan, as opposed to the conventional loan. But you got to get to a level, a threshold that you can qualify for a conventional loan. And you want to make sure you get to the point that you're not paying the PMI. And then you got to understand the whole flood insurance thing, how it works. But anyway, listen, I've talked to you enough. Listen, I appreciate y'all, man. Listen, good evening. Appreciate you. Listen, stay with your boy because your boy appreciates you. Later. Have a good evening.